The Buffalo Bills wrapped up training camp today with their final preseason game being on Saturday down in Tampa Bay. Cornerback Trey White did have to leave practice early today with what appeared to be a leg injury. Fellow cornerback Christian Benford also reportedly missed a portion of team drills, but no word on why exactly. And for Saturday, quarterback Josh Allen not going to be playing, while safety Cole Bishop will play, but to how much is uncertain. And we'll get more on practice. Sal Capaccio will join the show at 5 p.m. Speaking of the Bills' opponent on Saturday against Tampa Bay, the Bucs activating wide receiver Chris Godwin and tackle Tristan Wirfs off of PUP, though neither is certain when they'll actually be ready for game action. Patriots wide receiver Jalen Polk will be out this season. He's undergoing shoulder surgery, and no practice again for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He left yesterday early after getting his foot stepped on. Head coach John Harbaugh said after practice that Jackson did get an x-ray, no damage, and that he is fine. And then we also have 2 preseason games tonight at 7. Carolina hosts Pittsburgh over on the NFL Network, while at 8 o'clock the Giants host the Patriots. That game is going to be on Amazon Prime. Then in baseball, doubleheader for the Bisons at home against Scranton. Single admission with the game 1 starting at 5:15. You can hear that over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. Just after 4 o'clock, the Mets are in D.C. versus the Nationals, and just after 7, the Yankees will host the Boston Red Sox. And a reminder that Sports Talk on WGR is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
How many bees is a swarm? Is 2 a swarm or 3, whatever? How many does it have to be? And
I feel like 7.
It's Mike Schopp.
How many times do you have to be stung to have been swarmed? And I was like, dude, I got swarmed. I got stung only once, but I was swarmed.
And the Bulldog.
You insist you were swarmed.
There were bees, man, like plural, big, lots of S's. Lots of E's and S's. Bees. that was not
Bees.
fun. Right. That was not fun.
On WGR.
Hey, man, that kind of hurt.
Sports Radio 550.
Bees?
Bees.
Bees.
Lots of bees.
Speaking of bees,
I don't like bees.
Bee squad, so to say, here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Bulldog out today. Mike will be here in a little bit. Derek Kramer, Brayton Wilson here with you.
Howdy.
Talking about a little
bullpen.
bit of a surprise here. But the show carries on, as it's supposed to do here. Bills practice today. Head coach Sean McDermott talked earlier today as well, who may or may not play in the last preseason game. Plenty of things to find out about that. How we'll do that today? Well, John Ledard going to join the show at 4 o'clock. Sal Capaccio at 5 as well here. And Bills practice today got a little spicier than usual.
Yeah, spicy's a good word to put it.
Yeah, a little scuffle. Taylor Rapp gets effectively the boot out of practice.
The safeties are all of this. I mean, safety was a concern with this team for the on-field play. Now the safeties are a concern because they're trying to level everybody that's on the field that they're playing against.
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I will say, however, if Taylor Rapp keeps trying to be the human heat-seeking missile, how comfortable are you with a Cole Bishop, DeMar Hamlin starting tandem, because it's going to happen at some point during the season?
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, we've seen Taylor Rapp get hurt because he was a heat-seeking missile with some of the opposing players over the last couple of years, and it's just bound to happen.
But other things that happened from practice, obviously Tre'Davious White picking up a little bit of a leg injury, ultimately carted away from practice.
Yeah, it could be little, could be nothing, could be significant.
He was walking to the tunnel, out of the tunnel, and then ultimately he ends up on a cart and driven off.
One of those key cart moments where, was he carted off? Was he just, escorted off on a cart? There was really no kind of clarity in terms of how that went, but maybe Sal can provide a little bit of those answers
I'm
later
sure
on.
Sal will provide plenty of those answers later on, and we're going to find that all out together here today. So, Brayton, it's kind of funny how I came up with a little bit of the show topic here. Not really show topic, but for the hour that we're going to be in here. How confident are you in the Bills' defense? And then this practice happens. The way that it happens, where Trey White gets banged up. Are we staring into the face of Dane Jackson, cornerback 2? Are we looking at the safeties continuing to heat things up in practice with the way that the physicality has been brought by them? But ultimately, it is kind of the core question I want to get to the bottom of, which is, how confident are you in the Bills' defense heading into this season? I mean, on the plus sides, you look at Joey Bosa. He looks the part. It's always going to be about health for him. Matt Milano seems to be like he is back to his normal self. Bernard and Benford, solid as always. But yet, safety's a mystery. Defensive line's going to be missing a couple of their newcomers in Hoyt and Ogunjobi for 6 weeks.
And really, both of those guys have been hit or miss in the preseason.
And in the preseason games, Hoyt's the only one that has a sack. Hoyt's the only Bill that has a sack. But outside of that, though, the depth, it hasn't really shined in the 2 preseason games. As a matter of fact, so much so that you haven't been able to evaluate punt returners because they're not getting punts.
Yeah.
So, like, can Chenault be a punt returner? Who knows? I don't get to see it. None of us get to see it.
I'm thinking back to the recent episode of Hard Knocks. Spoiler alert: the opening speech Sean McDermott gave this past Tuesday. This was, I think, before the Bears game. So he was talking to the players in the one meeting room, and he was just like, "We need to see," and we've kind of heard him say it in press conferences with the media over the last several days, is we need to see more from the guys that we know, but we need to see more of them over the course of the next several days, several practices, several weeks leading up to the season, because we're not seeing what we think we should be seeing out of you. And that's just the layman's terms of what McDermott was essentially saying. But we're kind of looking at that right now with this team. We're still trying to figure that out. I know that happened before the Bears game. They had the joint practice, and by all accounts, the Bills, played relatively well against the Bears in the joint practice. But then when the preseason game came about Sunday night, one of the biggest egg droppings in preseason history, and I get it, it's the preseason, and you have to take the preseason pledge and take everything with a grain of salt. But still, you want to see the guys, the second teams, the third teams, the fourth team guys, the guys who are really trying to battle for a spot on this roster, whether it be a special teams contributor or depth player that can jump into the lineup whenever necessary, start to really show that, hey, like, they're ready to go. They're ready to make this team. They're ready to be a contributor, no matter how that is. And it doesn't seem like it is really kind of clicking for a lot of these guys right now.
Now, the part about that is you do want some of the camp reports to be substantiated in preseason games. TJ Sanders has looked good on all accounts.
Yeah, I agree.
He just didn't show anything in the preseason game against the Bears.
Right.
Not many players did.
No.
But outside of Deion Walker, I also have not seen a lot of flashes from the depth from the defense. I mean, Codrington starting at nickel corner, it was about as bad as it could have looked. But the guy has a roster spot because of his return prowess, not because of his ability in the secondary. Bishop plays with the backups. I got to think that Taron Johnson calls a switch on that touchdown, because otherwise, like, what are we doing here? But a more experienced nickel corner, let alone one of the best in the league, probably calls a switch.
Yeah.
So that rep doesn't have to gamble on which route that Zacchaeus takes, and he gets beat. That said, you want to see something, because even when the backups came in for the Bears, you got nothing. But I still think that when it comes down to it, at the bottom of this and at the end of the day, I think there's enough to like about this defense to where you do get into a good spot if the injuries can slow down just a little bit. This kind of hardens my stance also on preseason. Why should I play you in a game if we can't get through practice without the injury list looking the way that it does? I do think a lot of it is precautionary. You are holding players out.
Look at the Josh Allen situation. That's your prime example right there.
Allen is a player you want to protect.
Yep.
And for the first time ever, he is not playing a snap in the preseason. I don't need to see anything from Christian Benford. I don't need to see anything from Even Taron Johnson.
Matt Milano, nope.
Milano and Bosa even get a
Matt
drive.
Oliver, nope.
Oliver, I do want to see a little bit more consistency from this year.
Sure.
But you're not getting that from preseason snaps.
No.
It is kind of weird, though. Like, the injury list still remains lengthy.
Mm-hmm.
But now it is getting better. And yet then today, Trey White, banged up. Hopefully nothing long term. There's a little injury scare yesterday with Dalton Kincaid after he got smacked by Taylor Rapp.
Yep.
Probably why Rapp got booted out of practice today. Because another hard hit, this one to Elijah Moore, and, well, that's how it's going to happen.
And did I see something, too, that Christian Benford also left practice early today,
Benford
too?
did say to reporters, I'm good, everything's fine.
Okay.
It was more or less get him a little rest. I also think some of that might have been the coaching staff being like, you're our only healthy corner.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this. So Benford seems like he's okay. They just wanted to keep him out for a little bit, get him some rest. Fine. Perfectly fine. We're good here. And yet, I look at, and McDermott made the comment today, I've got to find a way to make sure to protect Allen from himself in a preseason game. And I think back to that Bengals-Commanders game on Monday night. Burrow is taking, as Zach called it on the Extra Point Show, Looney Tunes sacks.
Benny Hill theme playing in the background.
And then Jaden Daniels scrambling around and trucking through two players to get in the end zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I don't want Allen doing. And
no.
You're in the red zone with a chance to, you're being flushed out of the pocket. You have a chance to rush into the end zone with a couple of secondary players in your way. What do you think Josh Allen's going to do?
Oh, yeah. He's going to do exactly what Jane Daniels did. Did you hear Jane Daniels afterwards? Like, with the interview with the reporter on the sideline, she was just like, why did you do what you did? And it's exactly what we've heard Josh Allen say several times throughout his Bills career. I just wanted to score. And we know Josh Allen is the type of player that he doesn't care if he's putting his body on the line. He's going to go truck a linebacker if he has to go score a touchdown. And Jaden Daniels did the exact same thing. At this stage of where this team is at, given the window of opportunity that this team has, absolutely, I do not want to see the MVP quarterback trying to do that in a nonsense exhibition game. The whole fact that Sean McDermott's doing what he's doing this time around to protect Allen by not even letting him take a snap in the preseason is wholeheartedly the best decision that this team could make right now heading into the regular season. And it's the best decision.
There's going to be questions about depth. Who plays in this game? It's going to be the exact same cast from last game. So buckle up. Hope you get a better performance from them than you did last week.
Yeah.
But there's going to be questions about the defense, especially with secondary. Safety is a concern. And it was said by the head coach even this week. Corner might now become a concern if you now have an injury to Trey White, because you're already missing Hairston.
Mm-hmm.
Are you looking at Dane Jackson, cornerback 2? Or is it Jamarcus Ingram? Who would you even put there to feel comfortable with that?
I mean,
especially
Cam Lewis could play corner, even though he's more so safety than corner. But
right,
yeah, it's looking thinner and thinner at corner, especially if Tre'Davious White's going to be out any period of time.
And I'm going to be bracing through that preseason game because the depth at corner needs to make it through it.
That secondary is going to be a huge concern if you're not going to have Max Hairston back for week 1. I've heard Sal talk that he might be a IR designated for return candidate to start the year, but that's 4 games to start the season at the very least. If Tre'Davious White's out any extended period of time, you're looking at some trouble in the corner position. Christian Benford, he proved to be one of the better corners in the entire league last year.
Yep.
But other than that, if you look at Dane Jackson in his production, even when he was with the Bills, and then even last year when he was with Carolina, he was a 7th-round pick of the Bills,
correct,
years ago.
Oh,
more often than not, 7th-round picks are
Benford's a 6. It corrected.
Yes, Benford's 6, but Dane Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson was a 7th. Yeah,
7th-round pick, and he performed admirably for the Bills.
Right.
He stepped up when he needed to, and he did the job that he needed to do. But last year he signed a 3-year deal in Carolina, and Carolina seemed really willing in the offseason just to cut bait right away. It was just like, yeah, this didn't work out. I don't even think he made it to the end of the season, did he?
And Jackson, oddly enough,
think he did.
The other part of this is he was even brought in as an insurance policy to insurance policies.
Yeah.
I don't think the Bills envisioned that they would have to carry Dane Jackson possibly on the roster for opening night.
I mean, Tre'Davious White was kind of seen as an
seen as the
insurance
same
policy.
thing.
Right.
And then they draft Hairston, they draft Hancock, they draft Dorian Strong, and Hancock is banged up. Hairston is banged up.
Okay, Dane Jackson did make it to the end of the season with Carolina, but
yes,
I mean, still, he was cut in February, so they were seemed pretty keen on departing with Dane Jackson after one season in Carolina.
Right. So all it comes back to, though, is the comfort of the defense, how confident I am with them. And I think I'm still okay as long as the safety position can show me something. And luckily, I have a chance to look at that on Saturday. Bishop will play. And while you should be a little bit concerned that your projected starting safety is going to be playing in the third preseason game, it does sound like it's just about getting his feet under him. It doesn't matter if you look good or bad right now. You just need to have live reps. Get him going.
Yeah.
Get him back up to speed because he only just got back to practice last week. And that is the most that he will play in the preseason compared to last year. He played none of it. You want to make sure that he actually is able to start the season on time.
Yeah. The way I see the defense is I think I'm most comfortable with the defensive front. I think I've really liked in the action that I've seen at Oliver, whether it be at training camp, at the return of the blue and red, in the preseason. I don't know how much he's really gotten a chance at the preseason. He
hasn't. Really.
I've still liked what I've seen from him. And it's nice to see that. I mean, I remember at the blue and red scrimmage, I was watching, and he's trucking Osiris Torrance, Osiris Torrance is one of the better guards in the NFL, arguably. Ed Oliver looked like he's a man on a mission this season to kind of establish himself as the player that he was thought to be during his college years and heading into the NFL. And I'm confident with him to really take a step up this year. And I think having a guy like TJ Sanders next to him, Deion Walker next to him, to be able to go out there, even as rookies, to kind of take up space and allow Ed Oliver to do his job as the smaller defensive tackle that can get under guys and really create havoc in the backfield for a quarterback or whatever. And then, you got Joey Bosa, who as long as he is healthy, he looks the part. He looks like he could be a factor for the Bills in the pass rush. Greg Rousseau has been good at the run game. He's been good at the pass game. Can he take that next step? That's a big question.
They paid him like that.
I like where the Bills are at up front. I'm happy with where they're at linebacker. I think
linebacker is probably where I'm most confident.
That's the biggest injury questions and concerns is, can both Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano stay healthy? It seems like it, right. Even if not, after that you've got Joe Andreessen, who's shown good flashes and he struggled in the Bears game. But I mean, what player didn't struggle in that Bears game? Honestly.
But furthermore, the linebacker position, you're probably deeper than you have been in years.
Yeah.
Because Andreessen's probably linebacker 5.
Yeah, and you're actually pretty decent. You have Dorian Williams too, who's been
led the team in tackles.
Very adequate over the last few years.
Led the team in tackles last year. Shaq Thompson is valuable depth for this team.
I forget about Shaq Thompson.
And Shaq Thompson, he hasn't played anything in the preseason. He's been limited over the past week and change.
Yeah, because he's been injured.
He's been banged up. Mm-hmm. But I think he's valuable depth for them as well.
Yeah.
And then you get New Andreessen at the 5.
Yeah.
You take that every day.
Yeah.
I'm totally confident in linebacker right now.
Yeah.
It's the secondary right now.
It's the secondary.
It's the secondary that scares a lot of people right now, and it starts at safety.
Yeah.
And you want to see anything positive from Cole Bishop, quite frankly, is how you want to put it. You want to make sure that there is something when he's got time on task on Saturday that there is a little bit of promise there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's getting a little overplayed about what can he do. Mm-hmm. He hasn't shown anything. He played in that AFC Championship game, started that AFC Championship game. He makes 10 tackles. And typically when a safety is making 10 tackles, that means that a lot of things up front are going wrong. Mm-hmm. Because you are cleaning up for things that are happening in front of you. There's a play that Sal and I talked about yesterday with Zach of the ball that Worthy catches. It's kind of a jump ball, do your thing because the Bills are getting flagged. there was a flag that was going to give Kansas City first down anyway.
Still.
But Bishop, all you got to do is make the call that it's incomplete because the ball does touch the ground on the way down. And it's a different story.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, nice play by the safety.
Yeah. Well, and look, I don't think Cole Bishop has. I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Yes, he hasn't shown a lot in his short time in the NFL.
Hasn't had an opportunity.
It hasn't had the opportunity because of injuries and whatnot. But from what I've seen, there's been flashes of, okay, we could see that he can be a competent option for the team. It's just getting the reps, getting the time in the defense to be able to show that, he is that valuable second safety next to Taylor Rapp. Right. DeMar Hamlin has been very up and down over the last couple of years.
He's a replacement level player.
Right. And that's to be expected of a player like that. I almost kind of look at Dane Jackson that way.
Right.
Another late round guy drafted, and it's like, great, he's serviceable. What more is he other than serviceable? I don't know.
That's what backups are.
Right. I'm interested to see if Cole Bishop gets a little more action against the Buccaneers on Saturday compared to his game against the Bears.
How
much?
How much do you feel? How long of Bishop playing do you feel comfortable with?
A quarter at most.
And that would probably be a couple drives.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And that is probably, I think if that 2 drives leaks into the second quarter, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
But the Bills did also pull him mid-drive last week. Considering the injury history, considering the depth at safety, considering the fact that you probably have to look into the potential of a Bishop Hamlin starting secondary at some point during the year, I would say if he's in longer than a quarter and a half even, then yeah, if we're getting toward halftime and he's still playing, I'm like, okay, man, you really wanted to make sure he's got snaps. But I doubt he'll be in anything past halftime.
Yeah, none of even the second team guys should get in close to halftime. And it should be,
and that's okay.
At most 1 quarter, and then you let the guys that need to win those battles to make the 53-man roster fight it out. And worst case scenarios, a couple of them get hurt, then you have to throw somebody back in there. Okay, that's not great, but
that's typically what these last preseason games are for.
Right. I mean, when you have, oh my God, I keep like, I was thinking in my head earlier of just like memorable final preseason game moments. What with Keith Wenning or something like that is the corner? Yeah, Keith Wenning is the quarterback. Like,
oh God,
these random quarterback names that are just like, oh, you signed this guy to play the final game. It's just like these random guys at the end.
Last year, Ben DiNucci.
Yeah, Ben DiNucci
throwing ropes.
But I mean, I knew Ben DiNucci before he came in. I like Ben DiNucci.
It was he showed pretty well in the Bills uniform last year. He's doing it again. Pretty sure it's with Atlanta right now.
Yeah,
he's going to be playing that 3rd preseason game and doing his thing.
Ben DiNucci, XFL star.
Ben DiNucci.
Seattle Sea Dragons, I
Bills
think.
legend.
Yeah. Preseason legend. Bills preseason legends, Matt Sims.
Oh, God.
Yep. Throw that out there.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Oh, my God.
We're not doing this today.
No.
We're not doing this right now, okay?
We'll figure out another day to do this.
803-0550, the number to call. 888-552-550 as well. How confident are you in the Bills defense for the 2025 season, even with the injuries that may or may not be there? As the depth chart currently looks, there's a lot that you could be calling into question on this one. Derek Kramer, Brayton Wilson in here for Schopp and the Bulldog. Mike will be here later on in the day. You're listening to WGR.
home, all the feels are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day, I'm right. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go. All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. Yeah. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. Oh, you seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over. It's about time. Oh, all sing your high line on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster. Oh, roller coaster.
Again, I've said before, fully confident in Cole. It's the reps that he needs to create these calluses that you get when you're young and trying to grow in a position, and being out there is how you get that experience.
Head coach Sean McDermott talking about Cole Bishop, trying to get them live reps, and he's going to get plenty more of them on Saturday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a 7:30 kickoff. You'll be able to hear pregame. I'll be on with our guy Zach Jones right over there in the on the other side of the
We'll be
glass.
on at 2, right?
Yes.
We'll be on,
Thank
we're on
goodness.
We're on at
relatively
2
early.
o'clock. Yes, we'll be a little early because the game starts a little earlier than your typical night game.
Thank goodness this preseason game's not Sunday night at 8 o'clock.
I thought you were going to say, thank goodness this preseason game's the last one, and I
Well,
agree.
yes, yeah, that too.
It's been...
But
I feel like it's been a little bit of a trying preseason when it comes to the injuries in camp, to the not as entertaining game that you saw against the Bears.
this preseason really hasn't provided much entertainment other than Hard Knocks, and even that Hard Knocks is being widely regarded as being boring, but for obvious reasons.
And I'm okay with that if you're a good
I'm fine
team.
with that too.
If you're a good team, be boring.
Right.
Show that you have stability.
Right.
Hard Knocks also is not what it used to be. You
No.
give the team control of the central message. It allows even a bad team like the Bears to be like, hey, what are we looking for in this one? At the end of the series, it's about hope. The Bears proceed to win 6 games. 5.
Is that what they won
5.
this year?
They were 4-2. They lose 10 in a row.
Oh, yeah.
And then they win their last game against Green Bay
Right.
of all teams.
And it all spiraled out of control with the Hail Mary against Washington.
Right. They went into the bye week, emerged out of it, and then jumped into the depths of hell. So this preseason, though, for the Bills, no, it has not been entertaining. It hasn't been fun. Even the practices are kind of testing your will a little bit. And yet, I can still look at it and go, at the end of the day, you're looking at who hasn't been practicing. Just one player on the defense, and that's your first-round rookie corner.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else has been practicing, or at least getting back to it. Shaq Thompson moving up to limited, Cam Lewis moving up to limited today. Good.
Great.
Good. So the defense is not seeing as many of the injuries. Jordan Hancock also not practicing as well. Keontae Jenkins, I'd imagine he's probably fallen behind a little bit now in a battle if they wanted to keep 6 linebackers.
Yeah.
Jimmy Charlo probably will have a chance to make this roster.
It was nice to see him featured a little bit in Hard Knocks on Tuesday.
Right.
Nice little feel-good story.
Feel-good story.
Yeah.
He played pretty well on a short week with the Giants game in the first preseason game. Did look a little solid there. I will be a little interested in seeing how that unfolds at the end of the day. That said, again, Bishop's going to play a lot here. Or not a lot. He's going to play some snaps. He's probably going to be one of a few starters that even does. You're probably not getting much else out of this game.
As you
So
shouldn't.
if you are looking to be entertained by the third preseason game, well, just hope that the players that did not do well and got punched in the mouth last week respond in proper kind.
Root for backwards passes.
I'm rooting. No. I have to.
Matt Simpson.
You're
yeah,
not sitting
another
here
reference.
on Saturday. No. No.
I'd love to stream your guys' post-game show after the preseason game if there's another incident like this.
I will say it in a different language for you right now. No.
Is that Spanish or
Yes,
French?
I'm using a cop-out here.
Yes, I know.
But no.
I mean,
I'm just
personally, I'm of the favor of, hey, preseason games should be like soccer, running clock after the first half.
Running clock
Second half
just in
is
general.
Running clock.
Running clock. Just in general. You could start it in the first quarter. It's okay.
Yeah, because
Especially the third one.
I mean, especially in games like the one this past Sunday. Holy crap, man. After that third quarter, it's just like, just get this over with.
The worst
No
part
more
about that
injuries,
is-
no more. I just don't care about anything that happens in this game anymore.
Nate Geary
They
is
tie.
out there.
They tie in the preseason. I love ties.
Nate Geary in the newsroom before that game. I go up to him. I go, I know that this game is going to be tough because there's no starters. And I have the fool that I am says, hey, if you want someone there to, join you for post game, I can do that. Nate immediately takes me up on it. And then they get shellacked.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool. I got roped into this. But I did it on my own. It's my fault.
Yes.
But-
you got no one else to blame but yourself.
No one else to blame but myself. Story of my life. But there is something to look for, though, in this game. There is something to look for and evaluate, at least in the first half of it. Can I see Deion Walker make another splash play? He made a nice one against the Giants where he swims on through, bats the ball down near the Giants' end zone. He forces what ultimately is an incompletion that gets returned by Dwayne Carter for a not touchdown.
Yeah, that was unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. Come on. You got to let the thick six stay.
Come on.
You got to let the big man touchdown stand. Have to. I hate when rules take those away. But Deion Walker's made a couple splash plays.
Yeah.
Can you put a little bit more consistency to it? Please. Landon Jackson. He has a really nice pass rush move on one play, but I haven't seen enough from him. Give me more. A.J. Epinesa, I would want him playing so that he can avoid the cut line. I would want to see just a little bit more from those young guys up front and even some of the veterans. Like Javon Solomon, he has a couple knockdowns in the game, but nobody really notices because you got smacked around 38-0.
Yeah.
Or whatever the final score was for that game.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how some of these younger guys push some of the veterans that might be on that line of whether or not they're going to get cut or whether or not they're going to be retained. It's going to be interesting to see the Deion Walkers and the TJ Sanders and continue to play the Landon Jacksons, even like the Dorian Strongs. I wish Jordan Hancock was playing because I've actually liked what I've seen from Jordan Hancock.
Hancock
for the most
part. Fantastic, actually. Probably the most consistent of the rookie class.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, because that game gave Bills fans no peace, do we get an injury to the promising rookie, the most promising one that we've had in terms of consistency?
Yeah. Javon Solomon's,
that game was just a nightmare.
Yeah, Javon Solomon's another name that you mentioned that's kind of towing that line. I know that he's a really good special teamers. I think the Bills value him for more so his special teams play. But I'm looking forward, if anything, to how these young guys respond from that Bears game and then how they go to the next level to respond, to push some of the more veteran players or the guys that have just been around a little bit longer and really kind of forcing the Bills into the matter of we've got these good young talents pushing some of these guys that have been around but are on that line like an A.J. Epinesa. I don't know about Daquan Jones maybe.
So ready?
This
is where I need to see another splash play from TJ Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I need to see another splash play from Deion Walker. Why? Give me more confidence in the core question that I have.
Yeah.
How confident do you feel in the defense this year? It has been publicly said by the general manager that they wanted to fix this. They went out and made moves to try to fix this.
Yep.
I think Bosa, it's just going to be, can you play the 17-game season and into the playoffs? Because he looks the part. Rousseau is probably going to benefit from having Bosa there. Because if Joey Bosa is acting like his usual self when he's on the field, you're going to have to pay attention a little bit more. Rousseau should have more one-on-one situations. Good. If Sanders is able to play next to Ed Oliver like he was in joint practices against the Bears, that's two guys that can get up the field fast when they're on their game. Oliver has a little bit of an inconsistency issue. I think that making sure that you stack the rotation of defensive tackles is one way to help get him out of that. But show me a morsel. Give me something to take out of this last preseason game and a reason for Bills fans to at least watch a little bit of it. Because I don't blame many of you if you decide, I saw what happened last week. The starters aren't playing again. I'll see you later. I don't blame you for a second for that. You got burned last week if you went and sat and watched that game. It was, unfortunately, not your entertainment time that you were being utilized with there. It wasn't a great watch. So I don't blame you if you go, I got better things to do on a Saturday night. Don't blame you. But I do want people to come back to looking on Twitter or on a highlight package saying, man, I missed that from Deion Walker. I missed that from TJ Sanders. I missed that from Landon Jackson. Just give us something to bring from this game as a highlight reel so that we can go ahead and be like, what do you mean Shane Buechele chucked 3 touchdowns?
Fourth string quarterback chucking touchdowns.
There's Zach.
Hook 'em horns, baby.
There it is. I had to pick Buechele because
that'll lock me in for Saturday night.
Yeah, you
better hope that happens. I will be locked in.
I will film you doing backflips.
It won't be backflips. It'll be tears.
You'll be doing something.
It'll be tears.
Is Daquan Jones one of those guys that's, in your eyes at least, on the watch list for getting cut?
I don't think he's on the bubble at all.
Okay.
Especially because Ogunjobi's out for 6 weeks.
Right. I get that.
Your D-tackle depth, you do need that there.
Yeah.
And Jones is a piece that you can rotate in. If Ogunjobi comes back in 6 weeks and they may want to answer that question, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But you and I will probably cross it like in the newsroom or something.
If they do cut him, he's $3.724 million dead cap.
How much would they save?
That's according to Spot Track, at least.
That's the big question.
Right.
Because the Bills do have a cap projection of the lowest in the NFL in their top 51.
Doesn't look like
That's fine. Normal. You're a good team. And if they're not really saving much money, then why do it? Is effectively my question there. Because getting rid of Curtis Samuel, for example, it doesn't look like that's something that's in the Bills' plans. The only way you'd be able to do it is if you found a trade to get that cap space off of your books. I don't see it happening. So unless there's money to be made in making a cut like that.
$5.5 million.
Oh, you'd say 5.5?
That's at least what I looked at when I clicked on the little scissors next to him for this year. Post 6-1 release. 2025 dead cap would be actually $3.908 million. 2025 savings 5.5.
Okay, so I don't think it's in the plans, but it's not a zero now.
Right. And as long as, Deion Walker and or TJ Sanders show up and can kind of prove to...
But I haven't seen enough from them in the preseason to outright cut Daquan Jones. Simple as that.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think that he's going to be part of the rotation this year. And if he plays less snaps, though, for example, fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I think that they've done enough at D-tackle that you can warrant that. Especially with, oddly enough, Walker's the bigger body.
He's huge.
But he's looked better in pass rush than he has in run situations.
Mm-hmm.
So can you imagine you put the 6'7" guy in on third down instead of the player that you would think would be the quicker one in Sanders? Nope, it's Walker probably.
Yeah.
And that would be fun. I also was a little bit bullish on Walker heading closer to the draft, but you invest in such a good draft class, such a deep draft class twice, you should be able to get results out of it.
I'm just intrigued how that position plays out once Ogunjobi returns, because are you going to keep, then it would be 5 or 6 defensive tackles on the roster?
That is where we have to cross the bridge about Daquan Jones later on.
Yeah. That's because you got Dwayne Carter.
Dwayne Carter or Daquan Jones, you're probably looking at one of them.
Good signs of a solid pick by the Bills early. Then he got his wrist injury. I think it was a wrist. Got the surgery, was out for a while. And similar to Keon Coleman, when he came back from his wrist injury, Dwayne Carter wasn't necessarily the same player last year when he came back. So it's interesting how that kind of plays out with him. Because again, he's another guy that was very highly thought of when the Bills drafted him, a letter player at Duke for 3 years and really solid player down the middle of your defensive line.
Yep.
And shows good promise in his first year that got derailed by injury, and now year 2 is big for him because it's just, okay, can he stay healthy? Can he come out and he does good things right off the bat? If he does, awesome. If not, then okay, what do you do?
Well, there's only one way to find out. Get us to September, please. 803-0550, the number to call. John Ledard, Audibles and Analytics Pod, as well as the Read Optional Pod, will be joining the show at 4 o'clock. For Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, Derek and Brayton here with you on WGR. Last segment here of hour number one for Schopp and the Bulldog. Derek Kramer here, joined by Brayton Wilson. Mike will be back in just a little bit. And John Ledard will be joining the show at 4 o'clock. Sal Capaccio at 5 to recap should we call it an interesting Bills practice earlier today. Noticing a little bit in the chat, there's some UB chatter as they take on Minnesota to open their season on the 28th, if I'm correct on that, Zach?
That is next Thursday.
Next Thursday. Gotta love that. Mm-hmm. I actually genuinely love that. I hope that UB is able to put up a fun challenge and maybe even try to take that game outright. Yeah, make a statement.
8 p.m. at Minnesota. Minnesota's 16.5-point favorites, which it's a Big Ten school, and they're not, Rutgers. They're a pretty good Big Ten school. Darius Taylor's a good running back for them. He's been there, I think, 3 years now?
Yep.
I think 3 years. And their head coach, whose name, PJ Fleck.
Yes, PJ Fleck.
He used to be at Western Michigan, did really good there, ends up going to one of the big New Year's Day Bowls, then left them, and he's done really, really well in Minnesota as well.
A solid job in a stacked conference, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
The Big Ten's got nuts.
When you go to the Big Ten, it's kind of like if you're not Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State, like just happy to be there.
Not me, the Purdue supporter.
Well, now basketball's different. Basketball's different, but football, if you're not those three, and really Ohio State and Michigan, just be happy to be there.
As the Purdue supporter, I cheer for the dog. Doormat. Wow.
Doormat. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the Vanderbilt. You're the Vanderbilt of the Big
what
Ten.
What the heck am I doing here?
Vanderbilt
I get paid
of the Big
to do
Ten.
this.
It's all right. It's okay.
But no. Back to UB though. It is a promising looking season for them. I did see the predictions there from.
Yeah, it's NCAA Nation, Football Nation. Got a lot of followers, and I think he's just doing predictions for like every conference.
Right.
And in his, he has UB going 11-1, 7-1 in the conference, and beating Toledo for the MAC championship.
That would mean they beat Minnesota.
Yeah, that scenario, they would beat Minnesota. They've got one of the top 100 college players, courtesy of ESPN. Linebacker Red Murdoch comes in at number 90. Taquan Roberson is their quarterback. He's a little bit older. I think he's 24 or 25.
Yep.
But he's used the transfer portal a lot, going to different programs. Started a little bit at UConn. Last year was at Kansas State. But they're bringing in a lot of experience there. But they've got so much talent. If you played with them in the video game, you kind of know what it is. But they've got guys like Nick McMillan, who's a local kid. He was hurt last year. He's coming in.
Right.
Victor Snow is an all-conference player. He's really good, especially in the slot. LJ Henderson is kind of like the next iteration of the UB running back model, which is they're going to be incredibly good, may not be NFL players, but they're going to be 1,600-yard rushers every year. They're a really good team, kind of
they're
as quickly as they could be. I mean, they win 9 games last year, the Bahama Bowl against Liberty, and now this year, I think the last time I checked BetMGM, Toledo and Ohio are just ahead of them in terms of favorites to win the MAC, but UB is third or second in every sports book in terms of MAC championships. It should be a really fun year. I'm very excited for UB, especially locally. I went to my first game in years. I used to have season tickets as a kid. I went for my first time in, I think, almost 10 years last year. Had a ball for homecoming. It was great.
And they managed to get themselves out of the little hole there. Like, they had Lance Leipold. Leipold does end up leaving. Maurice Linguist, they do get a bowl win out of him in one of the 3 seasons, but
great recruiter, but not great on the field stuff.
Yeah, they move on after a 3-9 season with Linguist. That now Pete Lembo comes in, casually 9-4, Bahama Bowl, and now looking like one of the popular picks to take the MAC.
Be good. It's funny, too. I mean, even
Catch
during
a game if you can, honestly.
During the Lance Leipold era, they had a lot of talent, double-digit win seasons. They never could win a MAC championship. They went twice, I believe, but still their only MAC title, still 2008, where they weren't even a particularly good team. They just had a few big wins and a huge upset win against, at the time, a ranked Ball State team.
We'll move on. Talk a little bit with John Ledard coming up as the Bills face the Bucs on Saturday. Schopp and the Bulldog, Derek Kramer here with you. Zach Jones over there producing. This is WGR.
The Buffalo Bills wrapped up training camp practices today with their final preseason game being Saturday in Tampa Bay. Cornerback Trey White had to leave practice early today. Our own Sal Capaccio reports that White hopped off the field on one leg, was checked by trainers, and then after a few minutes was able to walk into the locker room area before later leaving practice on a cart. We'll get more on practice when Sal joins the show at 5 p.m. And then for Saturday, quarterback Josh Allen will not play, while safety Cole Bishop will play, but how much is uncertain. And then, speaking of the Bills' opponent on Saturday, the Bucs, they have activated wide receiver Chris Godwin and tackle Tristan Wirfs off of PUP, but it is not known yet when either will be ready for game action. Patriots wide receiver Jalen Polk is going to be out this season as he undergoes shoulder surgery, and then no practice again for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He left yesterday after getting his foot stepped on. Head coach John Harbaugh, after practice today, said that Jackson did get an x-ray, no damage, and that Jackson is fine. We also have 2 preseason games tonight as Week 3 gets underway. At 7, Carolina hosts Pittsburgh over on the NFL Network. And at 8, the Giants host the Patriots. That game is going to be on Amazon Prime. Doubleheader for the Bisons tonight at home against Scranton. It's single admission with Game 1 starting at 5:15. That can be heard on our sister station, the Bet 1520. Just after 4 o'clock, the Mets are in D.C. That game will get going here in just a few moments. They take on the Nationals. And then just after 7, the Yankees, they host the Boston Red Sox. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Raisin Bran. You got to put Raisin Bran up there. Everybody knows it.
It's Mike Schopp.
Listen, get your own stupid old dying person team and choose your own cereals.
And the Bulldog.
I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves.
That cereal is soggy. You reach into the fridge for the milk and open the lid on the milk to pour it in there, and that crap is already soggy.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds.
That's a problem. That's a problem for a cereal. I
Huge
think.
problem.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Okay, I made it. Thanks to the guys for picking me up the first hour today. Bulldog is already sick. I had, and I know you're dying for information about this, I had a crown put into my mouth today to fix a broken tooth. And I got out of there like 1:30. I'm like, my mouth is kind of completely numb here. And I might be able to sort of to talk, but it wouldn't sound like me to me. And I got to admit, the thing I was the most sort of bothered by imagining happening here today was taking a drink of water and having it just pour down my face and shirt without being, when you get the Novocaine and your mouth is numb and you really just, on one side, you sort of have to just do everything on the other side for a while there. Couldn't eat or anything. But I think we are good to go. So thanks again to the guys for filling in, and I'll take it from here. And it's sort of weird for me to sit down and start and have a guest right away, but I'm always happy. It's been a long time, for me anyway, since I've had the pleasure of chatting with John Ledard, who joins me now on the West Her Hotline. John has been on our show many times over the years. Veteran analyst whose work in recent seasons has been centered on the Bucs, who the Bills face on Saturday night. John, how have you been?
Hey, I've been doing really well. Excited that real football is right around the corner. I know you guys are as well. Huge season for Buffalo. So, as always, a pleasure to be on here talking Bills with you.
Thank you, John. And we can do this twice this year because, in a rare thing, the Bills will play the Buccaneers in the preseason and the regular season. Do you know anything about how, and I really don't, so I don't mean to put you on the spot if you don't, but how these schedules get made and how it is that these teams are playing each other in a season where they will meet again?
The preseason part of it is really kind of convenience relationships. I think they kind of work that out sort of that way, really like, oh, yeah, we've been doing this for a long time. We have good relationships. It's kind of convenient for us, the convenient trip, expenses. I think all of that sort of is how it gets worked out. How that works with the Bills and the Bucs this year, I'm not positive. I haven't thought about it.
Right. It's not like you're right around the corner here, but, I'm looking forward to Saturday. Who are we going to see from Tampa's side that we know of? Is this a game for the Bucs where everybody sits?
Well, everybody's sitting because of injury in Tampa Bay. So
Yeah, right.
No, I'm kidding. This is not a game. It sounds like none of the starters are going to play for the Bucs, which will mean they went through the preseason without some guys, Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, getting any snaps at all in the preseason, which is just as well. I think more and more teams are moving that direction in a lot of ways. So you won't see any of the regular starters, I would say, play for Tampa Bay in this game. Now, there's still a couple jobs that are sort of like up in the air maybe a little bit, where you kind of expect, you'll know who will start. Will, Servicia Dennis be the starter next to Levante David at linebacker? Will Jacob Parrish be the nickel corner starting? Will he be held out of this game, or will that still be part of the quote-unquote competition, even though everyone kind of expects him to win the starting job there? So offensively, I think those roles are mostly set in stone, but with Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan set to miss the beginning of the year, will Igbuka play at all, or will he be considered a starter and not play at all in that game? Then I think probably is the case, and so it'll be pretty limited in terms of there's not many jobs even up for competition on the Bucs starting lineup, so it'll be pretty limited in terms of the starters you see.
Do you have a particular philosophy about that? For me, I guess maybe this will sound like a cop-out. Maybe it is one where I don't need them to play. I kind of like the idea of it for just simple reasons, but don't get hurt. And I know you can't play like that. I mean, an injury to an important player would just bring up all the questions, and that's why the league does it the way it does. But man, I mean, the preseason is just sort of annoying enough when you're getting ready for the real thing, and especially now when so many stars just never see the field.
Yeah, I think more and more teams have been gravitating toward these padded practices or these joint padded practices against other teams where they can control the physicality and the emotion and the momentum, all those things a little bit more than maybe they can in a game setting. Like, for example, you can't be certain of anything, but you can basically make it in these settings that your quarterback doesn't get hurt. In these joint practices setting, your quarterback doesn't get hit, no contact, things like that. Obviously, in the game, you can't. So I think teams are gravitating more and more toward now. Almost, I think maybe every team in the league does it, where they joint practice at least against one team, maybe against multiple teams, and they feel like that replaces the game. So if your players play one up, everything looks crisp enough in those joint practices, where it's probably 85% full speed, something like that, but your quarterback's not at risk of an injury, you're probably not going to get a guy leveled like you will on game day. The players are a little bit more cautious about that stuff. Whereas in the game, you get the emotions going up with the game, the preamble, all that stuff built up to the game, and you got, it's kind of no holds barred out there in terms of the things that will happen. So I think teams just feel like whether it's smart or not, whether it's accurate or not, they can control the risk of injury a little bit more, but still get the same benefit of going full speed. So I think you're going to see a lot more starters playing in those joint practices, and that'll become more and more of a big deal and less in preseason.
Yeah. Then I guess maybe we should be able to buy tickets to those. And not have to, as season ticket holders, have to buy the preseason games.
We really should be. I mean, that is like the joint practices. You've probably, I'm sure, been to some. I've been to some. Like it is. I mean, it is. The tempers that flare in between is really fun.
Yes. And the Bills went to Chicago last week for this, and the Bears did have fans in attendance. With John Ledard at Ledard NFL Draft. I know a lot of your work over the years and our conversations have been about the NFL Draft and rookies coming into the league. Tampa made what I'd call one of the more intriguing picks of the first round this year with Emeka Egbuka. You mentioned him, and he seems to have, with the injuries coupled with this, elevated, impressed enough where maybe he wouldn't play in this game anyway. I don't know. But what did you think of the pick when they made it, and how good does he look?
He looks outstanding, looks absolutely phenomenal, and that was what I expected. He was, other than Travis Hunter, Egbuka was my number one wide receiver in the class, and I think he was my 9th overall player maybe, wow. And the reason's kind of simple. I mean, he is just a really well-rounded player who I think early on in the process people were like, well, he's just not that great at any one thing. Well, he could have gone to the NFL and been a first-round pick the year before. He chose to go back because he wanted to go back, and he thought Ohio State had that much of a chance of making noise, and he wanted to be a part of that type of history at the school. And so that was his objective. I think that was kept really quiet at the time because there were other really exciting, intriguing pieces that people kind of became enamored with. But even at Ohio State, obviously with Jeremiah Smith being there. But if you watched him, you just saw a guy who was really ready for the pro game. A lot of people are kind of still scouting wide receivers, and you guys know this from watching Shakir break out last year, a lot of people are scouting wide receivers and saying, okay, where is the guy that can be my number one and can win outside the numbers, vertically down the field, moss people, do all this crazy stuff after the catch, all these kind of guys. And there are certainly a couple guys like that, but almost all those guys can move around, play different positions, can run the full route tree from any alignment. In a league that's playing so condensed from an offensive perspective, everybody's in reduced splits. They're bringing wide receivers tight to the line of scrimmage. Everybody's getting a two-way go. Some of that stuff is less important than guys who just know how to play, period, but rather than have these unbelievable traits. We've seen that with Puka Nacua. We've seen that with Amon-Ra St. Brown. We've seen all these kind of guys, Shakir last year, who can play in the reduced split role with the two-way goes and use all their football IQ and their technique to their advantage. It doesn't hurt that Igbuka is also really big and strong and also really athletic, but people didn't give him credit for any of those things early on in the process. And then as the process went on, it was like, oh, wait, he ran a 4.4 at his pro day? Like, oh, wait, he's actually pretty fast. If you watch him on tape, he's running by everybody for Oregon. That's a pretty good organization. Like, okay, like, and you're watching and you're like, okay, I actually don't think this guy really has that many limitations. And everybody already knew he caught everything. He could run every route and could block. And so he just fits the modern game really, really well. And I think people maybe just were looking at traits of wide receivers and say, well, this guy's bigger, faster. But if you watch the modern game and you see what really matters right now in the NFL at this position, he really had pretty much all those traits and characteristics. So it's not a surprise to me he's hit the ground running. And obviously, from a value perspective, with Chris Godwin missing probably the first month of the season, he's going to give them a lot right away.
Love to see it. John Ledard, my guest. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is off today. This is WGR. I want to use the word quietly here, but you're being more embedded with the Bucs. It may not seem like it's the right word, but I would say the Bucs have won the NFC South 4 years in a row pretty quietly. The last time they didn't was a Super Bowl winning team when New Orleans won the NFC South and the Bucs won the Super Bowl anyway. So that's a pretty good run. I mean, the Bills are on 5, but they've kind of dominated this division most of those years, and the Bucs couldn't quite get away with calling it that. So pretty good run. I mean, Bowles and Mayfield, the story he's been. Do you think maybe the Bucs don't get enough credit?
I mean, they didn't get enough credit when they won the Super Bowl. People moved on like the next day, I think, just because it was like, oh, Tom Brady again, and the Buccaneers are a small market, and so yeah, from that perspective, they probably don't get enough credit. And I'm somebody who grew up, and live now that I've moved out of the Tampa Bay area, still like in the Pittsburgh area. So the Steelers, it's you turn on ESPN and they talk every day. Well, the Steelers haven't won a playoff game in forever. They're
right.
just like, and they're like every offseason, it's like, is this the year? Is this Mike Tomlin and the Steelers? It's like, well, I didn't do anything. So a lot of that stuff is just really kind of ratings based. A lot of the conversation. If you watch what the Bucs have done, the thing that's been really impressive is just the era navigation, right? To go from an era with Tom Brady and an older team that won a Super Bowl and probably, if they don't suffer all those injuries, had a real good chance the next year. Lost to the Rams late in that game, but had a real good chance to do it again the next year. And I think then had to navigate out of that era after the Brady down year where they still won the division into another one with other young players that I think that was just really difficult to do. Most teams, even the Eagles, who are like the preeminent organization in the league, went through some dry spell down years when they transitioned eras from the Wentz era to Wentz Foles to Jalen Hurts. And so I think the fact that the Bucs have been able to do that, yes, the division's been weaker, but the Bucs really haven't been that much stronger. They've just been better coached, better run organization, better drafting organization. So to me, that's one of the things that's been really impressive about them is, that kind of leadership starts at the very top of the organization, and where Jason Light has become one of the best GMs in the NFL, his ability to continue to rebuild the roster, retool the roster with good young players, even as undrafted free agents, that's something that, this is certainly with Ian Bean, two of the best GMs in the league, and you've seen them kind of fortify the roster and navigate eras. The Bills haven't done that at quarterback maybe necessarily yet, but you've certainly seen it with their defense, especially last year. Was a big era of coming out of those safeties and Milano being hurt and Edmonds and all these changes, and then they had to navigate the era and replace everything while remaining competitive. It's just very difficult to do. Not many teams can do it.
I share your perspective when it comes to the Steelers, for example, by comparison with the Bucs, and just certain teams get the attention. And the Steelers have not won a playoff game since the 2016 season, which they did, by the way, without scoring a touchdown in Kansas City, that divisional round game. So, John, the Mayfield story, what is your sort of perspective on him? Like, is he somebody that you were really surprised to see flourish with Tampa. Always interesting, of course, here to think about that 18 draft. Mayfield at the top. Allen and Lamar Jackson have been stars almost the whole time. Then you have Mayfield and Darnold, who just kind of reemerged unexpectedly, I would say. Maybe that puts it mildly, especially in Darnold's case.
Yeah, with Mayfield, you just get a lot of variance. Like, you get the extreme good and the extreme bad. And so it's about how often he can really find the balance. You're guaranteed to get both of those, I think. How often can he find the balance and limit kind of the low-end stuff is going to be the question with him. He's just physically kind of capable of doing everything. When he got to the Bucs, it was kind of like, okay, well, can he play composed in the pocket? Well, he's done that. He doesn't always do it, but he's done it a ton to the point where, like, he's even able to have really good seasons. Well, can he throw to the middle of the field? Is he going to do that consistently? A lot of shorter quarterbacks have struggled with that. Though he showed the last couple of years he's been able to do that very willingly, throw to the middle of the field. He's got a cannon for an arm. He can throw the ball down the field. So he really, I mean, he's made tons of plays out of structure. He's been unbelievable out of structure in Tampa Bay. But he isn't such a freak that he's going to live in that way either and always be successful. So he's one of the most interesting quarterbacks in the league, because you really have two groups of quarterbacks that most people talk about in the league. The guys who are clearly the guys that will have you in every year, the Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Burrows, the Mahomes, those guys that will have it in it every year. You're guaranteed, because of those guys are so good to have it in it. And then you have the guys that are probably solid every year, but you wonder if they're ever going to be good enough to actually win it all. There's a good number of those kind of guys. Mayfield in the same game can represent both parties, and that's what makes him such an interesting player, I think, is he throws the ball, all the touchdown passes last year, all the scoring, all the efficiency. Oh, but he also led the league turnover-worthy plays, and he got sacked way more times than anybody should behind what might have been the best pass protection group in the league. So he just can kind of devolve at times, and that is it's like a poor man's Matt Stafford, if you remember, especially before Stafford got to like the perfect nucleus that was the Rams organization, where it was like, man, sometimes Matt Stafford was the only reason the Lions were even competitive. And other times, like, he would throw him out of a game because he was just too ballsy, too aggressive. That's sort of what you get with Baker Mayfield. But in terms of leadership and the team following him, every single dude on the team would take a bullet for him. Like, they all absolutely love him. And that's where he and Josh Allen, I think, have really found common ground, where Allen sort of always had that maturity beyond his years. Baker had to grow into that, but he's found that now. And I think you are definitely looking at two of the guys that are most beloved in terms of the leadership of their team, and he has really become the face of the franchise. It's pretty crazy.
I can buy that. It is quite a stat line last year. 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 picks, 40 sacks, like you alluded to. Those tiers or those different categories for quarterbacks, to put it another way, that you talked about, there's a big difference in being in the NFC. You know, like when you think about the hierarchy in the AFC, guys who are not on that top tier, let's just see if they can ever get it done, right? I mean, maybe that's Trevor Lawrence or Justin Herbert, a couple of obvious examples. In the NFC, I mean, the Eagles were so good, but there seems to be much more of a window. I'm not saying anything controversial by that. Yeah. So maybe, I mean, it happened with Stafford. It happened with Hurts. Maybe it's Mayfield. Maybe it's Prescott, Jordan Love. Who knows?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the weird thing about the conferences right now is the NFC has much better teams. Even if you look at the top of the teams in the AFC, I think you'd find some things to get concerned about with Buffalo, with Baltimore, and with Kansas City right now in terms of their roster. Mm-hmm. You look at the NFC, you look at some of these rosters, like the rosters are unbelievable, but like all the best quarterbacks are in the AFC. So it's sort of like, it feels like the NFC is kind of wide open, but there's also way more competition. I mean, are the Bears like the third worst team in the conference right now? And would it really be surprising if Ben Johnson sneaks them into the playoffs? Like, it's just so competitive. And then you look in the AFC and you're like, well, you could probably take 6-7 teams out of it right now, maybe even before it even gets started. So, I think there's just a huge difference, disparity in the conference in that way. And obviously, you're in terms of what you'd expect to see in the Super Bowl, everybody's expecting to see one of Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City. And outside of Philly, I think people would put a bunch of teams in the NFC possibly in there and not be surprised. So it's really been a funny distinction between the two conferences right now, in which the NFC seems to just have so much parity, but because there isn't a lot of elite, high-end, consistent quarterback play, there's kind of anybody's guess how things are going to shake out. You get a magic run like Washington had, despite all their roster flaws, just because their quarterback looked like he might be one of them ones. Whereas in the AFC, you know which 3 or 4 are going to be standing at the end of every year. If Burrow's team can give him enough help, he'll be in there too. And it's been that way for a little while now, it feels like.
John, just a couple minutes here before we let you go. I know you've had a keen interest in the Steelers, if I know you well enough, like for most of your life, right? I mean, that was your team coming up. Everybody, sure, they get their share of attention, as you said, but everybody does kind of want to know how that's going to go with Aaron Rodgers. Talking about Mayfield and the variance, I mean, maybe Rodgers doesn't have the upside that he used to. That seems probably right. But, man, he doesn't throw picks. So, I don't know. Like, can you see it going well?
I think I could see them be the 7th seed again type of outcome. Like, I think that's possible for sure. The defense should be really, really good. And last year it should have been way better than it was. And frankly, I don't think it was that well coached of a unit. And so I think this year they've certainly fortified the biggest weakness at corner. They've given themselves an actual nickel, a guy who can play in the nickel with force, which is something every defense really needs. You guys know that, watching Teron Johnson play, how important that role is for a team. And I think that the Steelers feel like now with Jalen Ramsey, even though he's older, like I think he's still able to do a lot of those things that they need and were missing in that defense. So they have definitely improved the talent level of the secondary, which was the weakest group. Even if Minka isn't there anymore, the way they used him was just so far from impact type of role that I actually don't think, even though he could have been used in a better way, the actual way they were going to use him, it's actually probably not that difficult to replace and still get above the bar play. Whereas what they were missing and what they found in him and Jalen Ramsey, I think, was a lot harder to find. So I do think the defense can be really, really good. Offensively, I really don't see it. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well. Rodgers he can still make some throws, but just the lack of mobility and the fact that he doesn't want to get hit so bad, I think it's just going to, all that combination of those things to me are concerning enough that I really doubt this team is going to have any sort of a high ceiling in a league that you have to score points, and I think they're going to really struggle to run the ball a lot on this young offensive line, right? I mean, the 4 of these 5 guys who are going to be starting for them are recent draft picks, and the right tackle's Troy Fautanu, who's barely played in the league because of an injury last year. So there's just a lot of unknown. I think there's a lot of talent there. That group, how well and how fast they come together is going to be really telling for how their season goes. But even if it's a good group, I just think groups that young in the offensive line typically take a while to gel and mesh and be at their peak performance. And when you couple that with a quarterback who really can't move at all, and Aaron Rodgers, I do think it's going to be enough negative moments where the offense is going to be very limited and very siloed in terms of what they can do.
Last thing, John, let's wrap on a Bills question, and I might want to focus on their recent drafts for as much effort as you put into studying the draft. The Bills have gotten away with what their misses, because of Allen, and they've really, of course, as you know, dominated here in this division for years. Just playoff losses are the thing. But the last couple of drafts have people questioning them a little bit, whether it's Elam, who's already gone, Kincaid, Coleman, Cole Bishop seems a little iffy, although it's probably too early to say more than that. Yeah. And then Hairston this year is injured already, so we can't really say much about him. But I'd like to know what you thought of him as a prospect.
Yeah, Hairston is really interested in me because of the scheme in college, I think, was so unique. He played basically like an off-man type of scheme at Kentucky, which just isn't really in there in the NFL. Like, they obviously play some zone. You would see him sometimes in cover 3, basic stuff, spot dropping type stuff at Kentucky. But a lot of his normal, early down stuff was basically he would take 2 steps and then he's just kind of reading and reacting the receiver across from him. And so it was kind of like an off-man read and react type of scheme. And not a lot of NFL teams run scheme like that. So you wondered just what was the learning curve going to be. And you had kind of assumed it was going to be a little bit challenging just because I'm sure communications and teaching points and all that stuff are different. And then he got hurt. So it's really been hard to tell how fast his transition is going to go to the NFL. The athletic traits are there and ball skills are there, but I think there's going to be a lot of technical, mental lapses that he needs to make up for with splash plays basically early on. So I think there's a path for him to being a pretty high variance guy, where there's the lows are low, the highs are highs early on in his career in the NFL. He's a really different player than the other guys they have, which kind of made it, I just didn't see that one coming type of thing from a fit perspective. I know there was maybe some interest, but I do wonder how he's going to be able to mesh into what they do, or are they going to change some of what they do to fit his skill set. But this has been, traditionally a team that certainly can match up a little bit more in man. Last year, I think, even with Christian Benford playing as well as he did, but traditionally a pretty zone-heavy defense. And so there's just a lot of mental stuff. And in college, sometimes when it was pure zone, he did struggle a little bit more with that rather than the normal staple of their scheme, which was I'm looking at one guy and reacting to what he does. Now you have to see more of the picture at once. That can be a real challenge for a guy making the transition. So he'll be fascinating to watch, I think, this season if he does get back healthy. With the time that's missed, how does he work his way back into a group that I think is pretty weak outside of Christian Benford?
Yeah, I was going to say what you said there at the end. It seems like for his sake and for the team's that this is important time missed by his injury. And my guess is we don't see him by week 1, but I don't really know. Hopefully I'm wrong. John, thanks for your time. It's been too long. Appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, Mike. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate it.
You're welcome. John Ledard at Ledard NFL Draft on Bulldog. Would call it X because he's a conformist. He's not here today, not feeling well, sorry to say. I made it. I think I've talked myself out of the numbness phase, by the way. I mean, maybe I should have tried, maybe I should have put in a better effort and just talked to myself or called somebody and just, do you mind if I just talk for 20 minutes and maybe the Novocaine will wear off? But now I feel like I'm mostly 100%, close to 100%. 803-0550 to join me on the phones. Trey White, we don't know, but not a great sign. His leaving practice early today. Sal Capaccio will join me at 5. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
The Buffalo Bills wrapped up training camp practices today, their final preseason game being Saturday night in Tampa Bay. Cornerback Trey White had to leave practice early. Our own Sal Capaccio has more on what exactly happened to White and with the rest of practice in a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. And do stay tuned. Sal will join the show in just about a half hour at 5 p.m. Patriots wide receiver Jalen Polk will be out this season. He's undergoing shoulder surgery and no practice again for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He left yesterday early after getting his foot stepped on. Head coach John Harbaugh said after practice, Jackson did get an x-ray, no damage, and that he should be fine. We also have 2 preseason games tonight as week 3 gets underway. At 7, Carolina hosts Pittsburgh. That's going to be over on NFL Network. While at 8 o'clock, the Giants host the Patriots. That game is going to be on Amazon Prime. And then a doubleheader tonight for the Bisons at home against Scranton. It is a single admission doubleheader with game 1 starting at 5:15, and that can be heard over on our sister station, the Bet 1520. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
And how he does things and confidence in himself as a competitor and a football player. And those are all good things, but at the end of the day, the work has got to be put in, and he put in work this offseason, starting with the end of the season last year. So, again, I tip my cap to him, because to say it is one thing, but to do it is another, and that's what separates a lot of people.
Sean McDermott on Keon Coleman there. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. Thanks for listening. I was off for an hour, but feel good now. Got a crown. You ever have one of those? Has the show ever sounded older? A crown? What's that? Broken tooth. Got around to having basically it sort of, a new piece is attached to the piece that's still there. And I have to go back. Didn't quite work all the way, so I have to go back. Those of you watching on YouTube or the Twitch, see how effortlessly I can take a drink of this water? Like it's nothing. 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago, if not 2 hours ago, it just goes right down my chin, right down to the floor. It would have been very bad. I said already, it was the number one thing I was sort of kind of freaked out about, thinking about, getting here on time today. So I appreciate being given that extra hour. I've perfected, often it's me making the coffee in the afternoons. So there are the packets up there in the cupboard, and I have perfected biting off the corner of the packet perfectly so that enough of a slit I can tear off, and it sort of pours at the perfect speed into the filter. Today I just, out of habit, went to do that. I could not even figure out how to bite. Nope. So we had to go to plan B on that one, but just perfectly able to do that on a regular basis. It's a talent that goes wasted, mostly. So Trey White was hurt, and who knows? We don't know yet just how bad it is, what he's got, but it's something you didn't want to see. And, the obvious takeaway is, wow, like if he's not healthy, then what? I mean, a lot is kind of riding on him, more than I feel great about, just Trey White. The next phase, or a different angle when thinking about the takeaways, maybe you kind of wondered about that already. Even with Hairston healthy as a rookie, I mean, a lot of fans are probably still scarred by the Elam experience. So what are the Bills in the secondary is one of the bigger questions, and it, I guess, got even bigger today with that injury. I'm never somebody, almost never somebody to read hard into, camp reports. Like, somebody had a good day. What did they do? They broke up a couple of passes, made a couple of plays. I mean, just not a lot to go with. And when coaches, as almost always happens, are going to give you the positive slant on a guy, it can be hard to really know what coaches are thinking, what the team really has in a particular case. White, as popular as he's been, it's a long shot, I think, for him to come back to Buffalo and be adequate. I mean, is that a little bit pessimistic sounding? Long shot to be adequate? I kind of felt that way when they did it, that it was a player who I think has a lot of respect among players and could be a depth piece. And then when Hairston went down, we're looking at, well, he's even before, again, probable week 1 starter, moves to almost definite, and now who knows? So, the Bills have had their issues. Other teams would love to trade places with them in these kind of cases for as good as they've been. But they've gotten away with it. Yesterday, or the day before, I think it might have been Tuesday, we're talking about Bishop on the heels of the game in Chicago, and Sean McDermott spoke on Tuesday morning about, having some concern about what they've got in him, other than Taylor Rapp at safety, what they've got. And a quote or two emerged from 2 years ago when McDermott was talking about Terrell Bernard in the same kind of way. And I can appreciate the effort made to try to maybe calm people down a little bit if they were not calm about Bishop. And, coaches talk this way about other guys, and here's Bernard, and Bernard worked out pretty well. But it doesn't really matter to me that's out there, because I think it's reasonable to wonder what the Bills have at safety, and I think it's reasonable to wonder if in the secondary as a whole they might be vulnerable. So if that's even true, will this be a thing that they can get away with like they've been able to at different positions, losing Milano for long stretches, Douglas last year? Like, their defense did take a step back, but it wasn't like, they won 13 games. So we don't know, but hopefully White is okay. Just don't have word yet. Sal will join me at 5, and we'll see what he knows. He was there. There are 2 preseason games tonight. The Steelers at the Panthers and the Patriots at the Giants. The latter of those 2 games is an Amazon Prime game. The Steelers are favored in Carolina. I saw 5.5. And listen, don't give me that look. I know the point spreads of the preseason games, because when I want to know, at any sport, pretty much in any situation, when I want to know who's playing today, tonight, it's the betting apps that's where I'll go. And it's not because I'm so eager to find out how many points the Panthers are getting. I just want to know, what's the schedule? You could go to ESPN.com for that. You could have NFL app or something, or I don't know if we have that, but that's where I think to go to find out the schedule. Even like Pro Football Reference, which is going to be up on my computer 24/7, 365. It's not as easy to find it. So that's why I know the spreads there. Why was I even defensive about that? Pittsburgh at Carolina at 7, Pittsburgh by 5.5, and the Giants are 6.5-point favorites at home against New England. Is that Jackson Dart? I don't know. Are we getting Jackson Dart again? Is he done enough to not need to play in this game? It's the last one, so you're going to play the last guys on your depth chart, I think, mostly. But he's also a rookie, and I could see the argument, this is always there, to get him more action. Doesn't look like, by the spread, that New England is expected to do much with their lineup tonight. There were a couple of trades yesterday, wide receiver trades. Absolute depth, deep dive names. Devon Vele, traded by Denver to New Orleans, was one. The Saints trade a 4th-round pick for a 28-year-old backup receiver named Devon Vele from Denver. And the Saints have, I think, definitively become the team in the NFL that does the stupidest things. Whether that's their draft picks, contracts, extending guys past their prime. The Saints have become that team. They have yet to bottom out in the standings, really. They might do that this year. They're expected to be one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the NFL, but I can't tell you what I would sound like if the Bills were to trade a 4th-round pick for this player. And, this is an environment where we're always holding out hope that the Bills are going to go add a receiver, but this is just not how I would do it. And, it's not even a good comparison, the Bills, because they're trying to win. I mean, the Saints could be trying to win, but they seem really far away. And why you would trade a draft pick, you'd want to do the opposite of this if you're a team projected to be among the worst in the NFL, not trade for, 28 years old. That is a weird one. Mike Schopp here at 803-0550. Sal joins me at 5. This is WGR. For listening. Sal Capaccio joins me, Mike Schopp, coming up in about 15 minutes. Tomorrow, Sam Panayotovich, our regular Friday afternoon tout from Bet Sweats, which you can hear on the Bet 1520 and the Odyssey app every weekday morning from 9 to noon with Joe Ostrowski. Joe will be back in the fold with us starting next Thursday for the rest of the football season, so that's very cool. And as I mentioned yesterday, also Ross Tucker returns Tuesdays at 5 Eastern again this year, starting September 2nd. So we are getting close. Let's go to Sean here. Hi, Sean.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
I'm all right.
Just calling in. My thoughts are, regardless of the Trey White injury, whether it's extreme, not extreme, what is Trey White at this point? And even further down the depth chart, Hairston, unknown and injured. Dane Jackson looks completely washed up, I got to be honest. And then you got Jamarcus Ingram, Dorian Strong, Young. Ingram came in and played some the last year or two, but you got to wonder how close, or if the chatter picks up, if we call Rasul Douglas back. He's sitting there, he's able, he's ready. Sure, he's 31, 32, but clearly able-bodied last year and made some nice plays for us. But the cornerback position seems to be dwindling fast. I'll hang up and listen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I mean, they might be, he's 29. They might be on the verge of doing that. I mean, if it came down any minute that they were going to make that move, it would be a bad sign for Trey White. We don't know the extent of his injury. It's interesting to me that they just didn't start there, though. I mean, he really didn't make plays for them last year. He did the previous year. He did not have an interception last year. He gets credit for 5 passes defensed in 15 starts last season. So I don't remember week to week thinking about him very much. They won constantly, and it just didn't really become much of a story what was happening with Douglas. But I want to say if the Bills thought he was, at least serviceable, maybe he would already be on the roster. That doesn't have to be right, because he might have thought he could do better elsewhere than what the Bills wanted to give him. And I think at this point, if the Bills wanted him at all, you'd have to say he was probably wrong, making whatever bet that was, if he indeed was thinking that way. So now could be the time to do it. But the most telling event in all of that for me is that they went for Trey White instead of Douglas. Maybe money's a factor there. Maybe Douglas would have been more expensive, but like the caller said, as far as I know, too, he's available. So what's the deal? We'll see. Yeah. Thanks for the call, Sean. 803-0550. One more NFL item today. According to Walt Anderson from the officials department, and I think I saw Troy Vincent talking about this as well, that sportsmanship is going to be a, quote, point of emphasis, end quote, this year in the NFL. And it was Vincent. A couple of just kind of casually speaking examples he used for this were standing over an opponent and violent gestures. And I got to say, especially the latter of the two, but even the former would have been called, cause for flags already. I mean, depends how long you stand there, I guess. But if you just sort of hover over a player that you just took out, like a safety or somebody does this, there's a time limit on that. Maybe it's even like 1 second. Anything that sort of looks like it's showing the player up, I think they would have already thrown a flag for that, right? And violent gestures. I mean, name something that could be called, don't actually, just think of it. Name something that could be called a violent gesture that wouldn't be flagged already. So point of emphasis, I guess. Not something that I was worried about. I think the league has taken out a lot of that stuff, or some of it, enough of it, I'll say for my sake, to not have it seem like it's a problem. But I don't know. What do we want from officiating? We want consistency. We want quality. We might not want things like whether you're being a good sport to get in the way, if that's a fair way to put it. I'm not so worried about sportsmanship at this point in my life when it comes to pro football. We'll get it right. Officials, I mean, this is nothing new, but increasingly, gradually, over a long time, with technology, more and more of the onus on, close calls, almost any calls in the course of an NFL game is out of their hands. We've got SkyRef. When replay got rolling, we wanted officials to just not blow the play dead on a fumble. If it's close, let them finish the play. Let the defense take the ball back to the end zone, and then we'll look at it, and then we'll maybe bring it back. And I think that kind of thing has to be an adjustment. Well, that's a long time ago where that adjustment would have happened. But that has to be an adjustment for an official, because then what are you doing? Then you're hesitating. And maybe you think the guy was down by contact, but instead you're just going to not blow the whistle because you don't want to be wrong and have it cost a team a touchdown or something like that. So more and more of this stuff you have, I think what it looks like officials are just not calling anything. And then we've got the conference where I've made the point many times, I'm not sure they're even having a conversation. The referee is just waiting to hear in his earpiece what the call is going to be from someone who's watching the game on a monitor. That's where we're at in 2025. Will sportsmanship live in the domain of the sky ref or the space ref? Imagine that. The play is over, back to your huddles, and then the referee gets on the mic and says, we're actually going to throw 15 on so-and-so for a violent gesture. You could take this farther than just what I think these are obvious things, like I said, that I think might have been penalties already. You could, if I don't help you up after a tackle, if I don't reach out my hand to offer, to help you up, I'm not sure that you could consider that a violation of sportsmanship right there. That, in real life, you bump into somebody on the sidewalk, they go to the ground. I mean, 100% of the time you're offering to help that person up. I think, right? Would anybody not do that? Just keep walking? That's got to be a flag. Sal coming up after sports. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
Since so long, all the fields are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. Let's go! All sing your high line with the roller coaster of life. It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. You seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again. You gotta get both hands around it and make Or sing your highline on the roller coaster of life. You've got to all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster.
The Buffalo Bills wrapped up training camp practices today over at Highmark Stadium in preparation for their final preseason game this Saturday against Tampa Bay. Cornerback Trey White did have to leave practice early. Aaron Sacapaccio has more on what exactly happened there and the rest of practice in a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. And do stay tuned. Sal is going to join the show next. Patriots wide receiver Jalen Polk will be out this season. He's undergoing shoulder surgery and no practice again for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He left yesterday early after getting his foot stepped on. Head coach John Harbaugh said after practice, Jackson did get an x-ray, everything came back fine, and that Jackson should be fine. We also have 2 preseason games tonight as Week 3 gets underway. At 7, Carolina hosts Pittsburgh. That game is going to be over on NFL Network. And at 8 o'clock, the Giants, they host the Patriots. That game is going to be on Amazon Prime. And then in baseball, doubleheader for the Bisons tonight at home against Scranton. It's a single admission doubleheader. Game 1 is starting in just about 15 minutes at 5:15. You can hear those games on our sister station, the Bet 1520. The Mets are currently up 2-0 on the Nationals. That game is in the 4th. And then coming up just after 7 o'clock, the Yankees. They will host the Boston Red Sox. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Red Sox, Yankees at the stadium, first of 4, or Patriots, Giants. Preseason finale. Oh, I'm so lame if I say the NFL, right? That's just it's a pretty good test for an NFL preseason game. Red Sox, Yankees. I'm a fan of neither team, but still, like it's interesting. The tradition, the rivalry. The stakes are both in playoff contention, if not playoff positions. I'm gonna middle it. I'm gonna say ball game. Ball game is baseball game, by the way. Ball game, and then I'll peek at the football. Then we'll go from there. Boston, New York. Red Sox, Yankees, Patriots, Giants, both tonight. There's also a Pittsburgh, Carolina game, as Zach just mentioned. Sal Capaccio with us. I suppose I'll ask Sal the same thing. I think I would guess baseball, your Yankees at the stadium against the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely of the choices. I'm doing that, but I'll actually be at the Bison game for a little while tonight. So we get a little baseball thing with the Little League baseball team. So I'll be there for a little while tonight. And then, Yankees, Red Sox. I worry a little bit about the Yankees tonight because they got in very, very late from Tampa after really blowing that game last night and then coming back to win it, obviously late. It was a crazy game, but I know that that's going to be a quick turnaround for them tonight.
Right, 6-4-10 last night's final, Yankees over the Rays. All right, Sal, you were there. Tre'Davious White leaves practice injured today. What did it look like?
All right, so the practice was inside the stadium today, and we were, as a media group, basically in the one end of the stadium. It was the tunnel end, but in the kind of the corner area, and we were all watching. And Trey White, after an 11-on-11 play, we could see something. Like the media saw something. We didn't see it was like kind of not. He wasn't near the play. You're not following the ball. If you're following the ball, you're not seeing him. It was kind of through the players, right? So there was a couple of media members said, "Hey, who's that over there? It looks like someone's hurt." And we all looked over, and it was Trey White, and he was like hopping on one foot. Now you're like, oh crap, right? Because of the injury history there. So we knew that was the case. So watching him, didn't see exactly what happened. Didn't see if he got stepped on or if it was non-contact. Just could not tell, to be honest with you. So we see him hopping a little bit, and then we see Mitch Trubisky basically go over to him and walk him over to the sidelines. And as he's doing that, he's still hopping on one foot. Then he goes over, and he's with trainers basically. They walk over to the wall area, and Trey looked like he was upset. He was like kind of hitting the wall like he was upset, talking with trainers, standing on both feet at that point, talking with trainers. I would say he's there for about maybe 2-3 minutes. It probably seemed like longer. That was probably what it is. And then eventually he started walking on his own with a trainer trailing him, walked across the field, like the end zone area, walked all the way up the tunnel into the game day locker room, which is on the back of the tunnel there, not close to the field. It's on the other side. Walked into the locker room there, and we didn't see him for a little while. And then a few minutes later, took a look, and he was back. He had walked down, and I didn't actually see him physically walk down, but clearly he did. He walked down back towards the field and stood there and watched a little bit of practice and then got into a cart sitting in the front seat, and then they drove off through the tunnel back towards wherever they went.
Well, we've talked about him a lot. A lot's riding on him, it seems, with the Hairston injury and the Bills having some uncertainty, maybe to put it mildly, at that position. And you've liked how he's looked, I think.
Yeah, I've liked it, except for some times. I think it's been inconsistent. I liked how he looked maybe in a couple of practices. I haven't liked how he looked in a couple of practices. I didn't think he was particularly strong in the Bears joint practice, to be honest. Mm-hmm. I think he's had some really good days. One day he was the best player on the field at training camp, and I think a couple other days he's not been as good. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to like, but there's also some concerns. That being said, he's clearly a starting cornerback. I mean, that's what he is right now. He is the starting cornerback opposite Christian Benford. Now, on a related note, Christian Benford also ended his practice early, but he didn't go back out for team reps, and I don't know if he walked all the way out of the field, but he went off the field, off the practice field, and we did talk to him after practice, and he said he was fine. He just needed some rest, but that's okay. But if anybody saw that report out there, that's what happened with Christian Benford. But look, man, I mean, Tre'Davious White is the starting cornerback, and until Max Harrison's ready, that's going to be what it is. And if he's out for any significant time, then it really brings into question what you have. And to me, I mean, the next guy up to me would be Dane Jackson. Now, I know that doesn't sit well with a lot of fans. The reason why I say that is I would think the Bills would want to lean on a little more experience on the outside and a guy that has started for them before. Could you put Jamarcus Ingram in there? Sure. But Jamarcus Ingram plays so many positions for them. He's so valuable. I don't think you would pigeonhole him just to start on the outside. I think you would have Dane Jackson in order to have Jamarcus Ingram available to do other things. That's why I say I think Dane Jackson would be the next man up.
Mm-hmm. The obvious name from the outside here, Sal, would be Rasul Douglas. A caller asked about him a short time ago. And my thought on him is just how they went to Trey White early in the offseason in the first place. But it might have been the case that Douglas was looking for more than Trey White would have gotten here in a deal somewhere else in free agency. Now it's August 21st. He doesn't have it. I wonder, it's not just White, but maybe even Benford, dare I say it, depth pieces too, just injuries. And, of course, Hairston. He would be the name on the tip of your tongue, but is there a reason you might think where the Bills just would never call him, or is there someone else? What do you think of Douglas as it's a red flag if he signs, right? Because then they're probably concerned about where they're headed with their injuries.
Yeah, well, would I say never? No, I think that, you never say never. I mean, if they're in a spot where they need somebody, I think the first thing you do is get somebody who knows the system. You don't have to onboard them as quickly, right? I mean, you go get somebody who you can plug and play and say, hey, you know what our calls are. You've played with this group before. And, Rasul did that for a year and a half. I'd also say I think I share that I know a lot of fans saying that today, but I think a lot of those same fans would say and go back and look that he wasn't as good last year, right? Yeah. There were a lot of times where you felt he just wasn't giving you what he did the year before that when they got him in a trade. So what does he have left? What is he right now? And the fact that he hasn't signed anywhere, we don't know what that means. Could that be what you just said, Mike, which is he's just asking for too much money and a team just I don't want to do that? Or has he gone and he's met with teams and not really what we want right now because he's not really what we thought he was or could be or, still is, that kind of thing. So you never know. I mean, but he's still out there as a free agent, and that sometimes should tell you something. So, but would I say never? Of course not. I think if there's something significant, I think a guy like that would be, what are your other options and alternatives? You're not getting a draft pick at this point, obviously. I think you just have to wait for Max Harrison then to be ready and hope that he can play. I do want to add, though, a couple of things about Tre'Davious White, because I think that this is just context that needs to be out there after tweeting and reporting today and reading a lot of people. Number one, I've seen a lot of reports, even people attributing to me or other reporters there, saying he was carted off the field. I think that's not correct when you think of the way people are carted off a field. Tre'Davious White did ultimately leave the field while sitting in a cart. He walked all the way up the stadium tunnel into the locker room. Then he walked back down the stadium tunnel to where the cart was. It also is a long walk, and if he's going to go outside the stadium, which obviously he did after that, and at that point, I think you have to take into context that they're not going to have him, basically walking and doing that. If he's got to go outside the stadium and over to the other locker room and the training facility, they're going to bring a cart for him. So I want that, number one. Number two, Mike, it is notable to me, and I don't have to say this means something or doesn't mean something, but it is notable to me that the head athletic trainer, Nate Bresky, wasn't walking with him up the tunnel. It was a trainer. There was someone there. But I just noted that it wasn't the head athletic trainer, right? It doesn't have to mean anything. I'm just saying in my experience, a lot of times, it will be him, in those situations where there's something
scared.
Concerning, right? So, I like I said, I don't want to necessarily have to read anything into that, but I do want to make note of it.
Sal Capaccio on the West Her hotline. Mike Schopp here. Bulldog is off today. Just to put a bow on this regarding White. So tomorrow is a travel day. Is there any reason to think there will be an update? Of course, somebody could just break in at some point and this is what he's got. But is there anything official tomorrow that could tell us the news?
No, there's no media availability tomorrow, so we will not hear anything. The only way we would know, I think, before Saturday. Now, Saturday night's a long way away, right? We got 48 hours here plus before they play a game. I guess what I'm waiting for is, does he show up in Tampa in the stadium? And is he with his teammates? Is he in uniform? Is he on the sidelines? I think that's the next thing to see. it is very possible that he doesn't make the trip, but it doesn't have to mean that it's also a majorly serious injury. I'll give you an example. Last week, Cam Lewis didn't make the trip with the Bills. Cam Lewis was practicing this week. So you just never know how they handle these things.
Mm-hmm, right. So there was also a fight today, and it sounded like a pretty good one.
Yeah, I guess good relative to like a lot of bodies and a lot of people in there, right? I mean, it's football players pushing and shoving. Basically what happened was Taylor Rapp kind of gave Elijah Moore a shot, and Elijah Moore like threw the ball back at him, tossed it back at him, whatever. That exchanged some words, and a whole bunch of guys just started gathering around. Next thing you know, people are pushing and shoving. They're getting hands on each other. And then guys were on the ground. And I looked down, and A.J. Epenesa's on the ground, but I don't know if he was pushed on the ground. He fell. Deion Dawkins pulls him out of there. He gets up. They start talking to each other. They kind of sort of put hands on each other. They weren't really fisticuffs or anything. And there was a lot of words exchanged between a lot of people. That was after a little while before that. It looked like to me DeMar Hamlin had hit I think it might have been Ray Davis coming through the hole or somebody. Like there was maybe it was Elijah Moore. My apologies, but he did hit somebody, like give him a shot. And even Josh Allen came in and said something when everybody kind of gathered in. So it was chippy today. And Sean McDermott said before practice he was going to have the ones practice today and go ones against ones, and they were going to have to get some. I think he said like conditioning in, or making sure they're that kind of thing. And he said they're not going to like me much for it. So it could have just been seriously like people are just on edge because they're not happy that has to happen. But I think Sean's plan was let's do this so these guys don't have to play tomorrow, Saturday.
Do you have that's interesting? Do you have a take on Rapp? Wasn't it Kincaid that went out yesterday from a hit by Taylor Rapp, and then I'm not sure if I'm right here, but I read somewhere that he might have been kicked out of practice for this one. So is he crossing lines as you see it?
Yeah, I did not see him get kicked out, but one of my colleagues and a couple of my colleagues did say that, so I'll trust that I didn't see that happen, but I was focused on what was happening. So if that was the case, yes, they did report that. My take is that you have to know the situation in the moment in the practice, and I love the fact that he goes hard. I love the fact that he wants to practice and be there, but you have to understand what the situation is. I will tell you, yesterday against Dalton Kincaid, I mean, Taylor Rapp went up to make a play on the ball. So did Dalton Kincaid, and I think they're just going hard. And just because of the way Dalton's body was kind of angled, that it might have happened and been more severe than it should have been. It's always tough. I try to really understand, being around football my whole life, Mike, that these are football players who are playing football. And yes, as much as you're not supposed to hit or take to the ground, you're also supposed to try to make a play, right? And sometimes those things happen. But I do think there's times where, and Taylor Rapp specifically has been kind of in the middle of this a little bit, I do think there's times where you have to know when to kind of let up and not let that be a part of your game in that situation.
We've talked about a lot this week even, some uncertainty at safety beyond Rapp with Bishop and what their options are. How good a player is Rapp for you?
Well, good is relative, I guess. I think he's super important for the Buffalo Bills. That position is really important for what they need for guys, and he kind of does everything for them. I don't know if you saw my tweet yesterday. I don't think we talked about it specifically, but yesterday I asked Bobby Babich about the evolution of safety, and it used to be 3 and strong, and now there's just 2 safeties, and Bobby loved it, and he's like, yeah, I love talking about this stuff. And he talked about how he came from the 46 defense, 46 single it was called, and that was Doug Plank's jersey number, right, and all that. Mm-hmm. And I think, Taylor Rapp is kind of the new age kind of safety that Bobby Babich is referring to, which is he can play deep center field, but he can come up in the box. And this is what we're talking about, right? He's a physical guy. But you need guys who can do everything there. And that's what the new wave, new age type of safety is. That's what they're thinking Cole Bishop can be. No longer really is, well, you just have a guy who's a thumper. That was back in the day. You just have a guy who's center field. I think it's more important for the Bills and their defense, by the way he talked, to have guys who can really play center field, because he said playing in space is really important. But the other reason why Taylor Rapp is important, and I'll go back to what Sean McDermott said back at the owners' meetings, I believe it was, Combine maybe, I think owners' meetings. He said Taylor Rapp basically does what Terrell Bernard does for them, for the secondary. He sets their defense. He's a super important piece for them, and we all know how, that is something they really rely on there. So good, yeah, I think he's made some plays, no doubt. Is he, an elite safety in this league? No. he had some interceptions. I think that he's progressed like from where he was when he first signed. He was behind Micah and Jordan, but I think he's important for what they do.
Who's your all-time favorite safety?
Ronnie, all-time favorite safety.
Ronnie Lott is the first name I think of. I'm not sure I couldn't come up with somebody that I liked more, but not a Bill.
I might say that. I might go to Steve Atwater.
All right, Atwater, same mold.
Atwater was just he was a thumper, but he could do a lot of things too. I mean, how can you not love Kelso and Smith? Now that is the true. You want to talk about old school style of safeties and how teams played it. That is a true strong and free, right? That's Leonard Smith,
no doubt,
and Mark Kelso. And I told a story before, and I don't know if I've told you, but I remember being in high school and I go to a game and the Bills got beat on a couple post patterns. I go back to Cleve Hill the next day and I'm at football practice and I say to my old defensive coordinator, athletic director, Carl Curris, who founded the Trench Trophy, I said, Coach, why do the Bills get beat on these post patterns, right? They have these really good safeties. And he said, because Leonard Smith is too undisciplined to stay in his zone. He wants to hit everybody, and Mark Kelso is not fast enough to cover for him. That's what he said. Yep. It was great, and I'm like, yeah, it's right. I understand now.
Sounds right to me. Basically, I could buy that explanation. We talked yesterday about Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and their importance to the Bills in their years. McDermott's history. McDermott also had Brian Dawkins for 10 years when he was on the Philadelphia staff. There's an all-time great too.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, you talk about some of these guys that McDermott has had, and that's one of them. McDermott talks about Brian Dawkins a lot. Like he refers to him as one of these guys, like talking about the safety play that they've had, over the years and where he's been in Philadelphia and Carolina. So, he's done a really good job of developing safeties, and he's also had the opportunity to work with really talented safeties, and it's kind of been the perfect match. And right now it's a bit of a concern. I like what he said about Cole Bishop today, though, that, he likes where Cole Bishop's going right now. He likes the progression. He used the word callous again. You have to build up the callous. You have to, failure's the best teacher. And I think this was Bobby yesterday. Failure's the best teacher. And, making sure that, going through these tough times is really important for a lot of these guys. So, yeah, I like what I'm hearing from them. But, now you have to go put it into play and see him do it.
Just a couple of minutes left with Sal Capaccio here on the West Shore Hotline. How about Saturday night? We found out that Josh Allen will not play in this game. No surprise, really. Do you expect any of the starters to play? I mean, thinking about, again, Trey White, whether he makes the trip, you sort of read into that a little bit, what it could mean. Would you have thought he would have been on the field if he were healthy, though?
No, I don't. Sean even said today, he at that, like when he met with us this morning, he said this time he didn't anticipate most of the starters playing, but he said everybody's a case-by-case basis. We asked him about Curtis Samuel, for example, because he hasn't had that time. And he used, this is a good example, right, of how you're going to have to think about this. He said, well, Curtis was missing this time, and, you might think that he would play, but he actually really likes what he's done over the last couple of days since he's been back. Is that a guy that you need now to see on the field, or has he done enough over the last few days to say he doesn't need to be on the field and you have 2 more weeks to get him ready here? So I think that's a good example right there. I do think Cole Bishop will play, though. I think you have to have him back on the field to get more of those reps to, I'll use Sean's word again, callous, to go through those things again, to understand. And I would expect, though, Mike, honestly, that I think Saturday night probably looks a lot like, personnel-wise, it did last Sunday night.
Well, maybe the Bucs will cooperate, unlike the Bears. And I would expect this, actually. The Bills are favored in the game, so somebody else is expecting it too, that we know we're not going to see most of Tampa's, if not all of Tampa's top guys. Got to be fun for you. Looking forward to Tampa.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, go down there tomorrow night and then have all day Saturday, and I have some friends down there and been trying to coordinate. My buddy who you've had on the air before, TJ Reeves, the sideline reporter for the Buccaneers, trying to get together with him maybe if we can. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, for sure. I mean, you look forward to these warmer weather trips when they're a little bit later in the year. Tampa at this time of year is going to be pretty hot, but that's okay. Not complaining at all, but yeah, for sure. I have some friends down there. I got a friend who's a really, really big Bills fan, and him and his family, and they're driving up maybe about an hour from where they live down a little south of Sarasota, and, he calls me and says, hey, you want to get together for lunch with my mom and dad? They've been seeing in a while. So that kind of thing is pretty cool,
I talked to John Ledard earlier and was just looking up the Buccaneers. It didn't hit me right away that they have won that division 4 years in a row, going back to Brady, and not always with great records. One year they were 8-9. and won it. But, yeah, they're on a 4-year NFC South title streak.
You know, it's funny, too. They come here this year, and it's always weird that it's weird for me this year that the Bills are playing them in the preseason and playing them in the regular season. I did ask Mike North about that when the schedule came out. Hey, how does that happen? He said the league does it. It's not the teams, and it's the third preseason game, so you're not probably expecting the starters, and because they don't play until later in the year. But I still think it's kind of weird that happened. Then I was thinking today, Mike, you know this because I know you know this, but the Buccaneers were the only team that had never visited Highmark Stadium, currently Highmark Stadium, for many years. And then they did, 2009 maybe? Dante Whitner, right, has a nice play there, and T.O. And then since then, though, now the last few years, this will be the third time in the last several years they've been here. This is the regular season, when they play.
Yes. 09, 17, and 23. The 23 game, the Thursday night game, it was the so-called 17th game, the extra, both first-place teams. That game the game ended on a failed Hail Mary?
Yes, yeah,
Tampa?
I remember that. It fell harmlessly to the earth, but, man, if someone turns around, it might not have fallen harmlessly to the earth. I saw Chris Godwin's going to start returning for them very soon, and they're hoping he's ready for October. The Bills play them in November, so that's something to monitor there. And, that would be, 3 times? This will be the third time in 9 years then that Tampa comes to Buffalo, which is kind of odd for an NFC team.
Right, that extra game does give you that. Yep. All right. Very good. Thank you, Sal. Enjoy the trip down.
All right, thanks.
Sal Capaccio on the Western Hotline. His appearances brought to you by your place to buy a case, New York's only outlet liquor. What's your outlet? In the 80s, I don't need to do a whole thing on this. Who even cares? It's so long ago. But you finished last 5-team divisions. There were 5 and 4. If you finished last in a 5-team division, you would play the other 5th place team from your conference home and away. So the Bills and Chiefs had at least 1 year of that, I think 86. And then you'd play the 5th place team or teams from the other conference, and that was the Bucs. So a couple of those games, the Bills and the Bucs in the 80s, at least one would have been that, just 5th place team versus another. Because you get left out of, in those years, you'd get left out of the division matchups that we get every year now in the NFL. Every division is 4 teams. So as a rule, this year it's the NFC South. The Bills play everybody, and then that extra game is the Philadelphia game, 2 first-place teams matching up way down the road after Christmas. 803-0550 is the number. I don't think you'll have a thought on that necessarily, but Trey White going down to some extent at practice today. We'll see what we find out here in the next while. May not be until, like Sal even said, Saturday night before we get any kind of word on that. But that stuff does often get out. So we have that to talk about and more, and we will continue after the update. This is Mike Schopp on WGR.
Stopped me on the street last night, said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day upright. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on. I could never imagine something better. Yeah, right. Now you're cooking on high heat in the middle of the street. Roller coaster, take me to a better time. time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life. Oh, you seem to easily forget how to place your bet. When everyday life gets you down, you gotta steal the crown. Got to own it. Don't bitch and moan about it, please. God forbid you scrape your knees, and it's nothing to sneeze at. Oh, I've told you over and over again, you gotta get both hands around it and make your own plans. Roller coaster, it's taking over, it's about time. To all choose your timeline with the roller coaster of life. Roller coaster. I want to go down the rabbit hole, down the rabbit hole of life. And now it's about to leave. Oh, roller coaster. Oh, roller coaster.
The Buffalo Bills wrapped up training camp practice today over at Highmark Stadium. Their final preseason game will be this Saturday in Tampa Bay. Cornerback Trey White, though, had to leave practice early. Aaron Capaccio has more on what exactly happened there and the rest of practice today in a piece up at our website, WGR550.com. Patriots wide receiver Jalen Polk is going to be out for the remainder of the season. He is undergoing shoulder surgery and no practice again for Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. He left yesterday after getting his foot stepped on. Head coach John Harbaugh, though, after practice today, said Jackson did ultimately get x-rays, everything came back fine, and that Jackson is fine. And then 2 preseason games tonight. At 7, Carolina hosts Pittsburgh. That's going to be over on the NFL Network. And then at 8, the Giants host the Patriots. That game is going to be on Amazon Prime. And then some baseball action going on today. A doubleheader for the Bisons at home against Scranton. Game 1 currently underway. You can listen to that game on our sister station, the Bet 1520. The Mets are up 3-1 on the Nationals in the 5th. And then coming up at 7 o'clock, the Yankees will host the Boston Red Sox. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Welcome back, and thanks for listening. I'm Mike Schopp. Bulldog is out today. He should be, I hope so anyway, back tomorrow. He and I will both be off Monday. I'm off tomorrow, and then he's off all of next week. So because of his being unavailable today, I won't see him until September. The next show we'll do together, Ross will be on. It'll be, week 1 of the NFL season. Right So close. 803-0550 is the number. Just talking to Sal about the Buccaneers a little bit. They're the Bills' third and final preseason opponent coming up on Saturday night. And Sal brought up some of the history with the Bucs. You got to think that overtime game that the Bills lost in Tampa was really a great game. I mean, that was a classic. The big Fournette run, wasn't it? Or was it someone else? Was it Fournette who ended that game with the long? No, it wasn't. It was Perryman. Fournette had a long one to start the scoring in that game, and it was Brady to Brashad Perryman in overtime for the Bucs that day. Not a lot of big games over the years between these two teams, but that was probably, maybe easily, the best. The Bills are 1.5-point favorites in their opener against the Ravens, and the Bucs are the same 1.5-point favorites in their Week 1 game at Atlanta. Interesting that they'd be favored there. What do you want to do with that? Tampa Bay minus 1.5 at Atlanta. It might be the highest total of the opening week. No, it's not. 47.5. Wow, Baltimore Buffalo is 51.5. I did not realize that. That's a pretty high number. There's a 49.5 Detroit and Green Bay, and those are the top two. Steelers Jets 38.5. That's the range. 51.5 Ravens Bills. Bills by 1.5, so 26.5 to 25. That's right at what the playoff game was. Basically, the market for this one, Week 1, is basically identical to what the playoff game was, right at it. Survivor is coming. Oh boy. I mean, that's, again, referring to the next time Bulldog and I are in here together. There'll be picks, there'll be Survivor, there'll be fantasy lineups, not just drafts anymore, but lineups. In fact, I think that night is our draft with Paul Hamilton. It might be that night. Very exciting times. Week 1 Survivor. You know the drill here. You're picking one, let's just make it winner as opposed to loser, but they have those too, loser pools. You're picking one winner each week, no spread. And here are your top candidates for Week 1, because you want to know this. You want to be thinking about this right now. It would be Denver minus 7.5 at home against Tennessee. Philadelphia in the Thursday night opener minus 7 against Dallas. Washington is a 6-point favorite against the Giants. Arizona is a 6-point favorite at the Saints. Saints getting no respect. Doesn't surprise me. And so those are your top 4 spreads, and those aren't even that high. Cincinnati, Week 1 is always precarious because nobody knows anything yet, as opposed to the other weeks where we're all very capable of predicting NFL games. Cincinnati at Cleveland is minus 5.5. Those are your top 5 favorites in Week 1. I think because 7.5 is the smallest number there, nobody's going to be really chalky. Like there isn't one. If there were one 14-point New Orleans at Kansas City or something like that in Week 1, where that would probably be a double-digit spread, that's a Survivor pick I think you want to avoid, because too many people in your league will in the pool will pick the Chiefs in that hypothetical. So you want to avoid that. I myself love Survivor pools, but I almost never am in one because I don't want to play against people that have like 5 entries or, people who are working together, which is, almost impossible to prevent. But when you have that, you sort of build a little consortium within the pool, and you've got 2 or even more than 2 people sort of making sure they don't pick the same teams. It's kind of working as a team. And I just do not want to try to beat that, and win Survivor pools as a solo artist. And in some of these, you do get the right to, have numerous teams, and you can just do the same thing on your own. Just pick, I got 5 games here, 5.5 and up. I have 5 entries. I'll just pick all 5 or something like that. It's what you want. It's what you do to win, I guess. But that's why, unless unless I can convince myself to pour money into one of these things and have a lot of entries myself, just doesn't feel right to me, then I tend to avoid it. I do play in Joe Ostrowski's, that I will tell you. That's a bigger one, and I guess the allure of a possible huge payout is enough. So you've got, let's do some more here. Those are the 5. Who's my pick going to be of those 5? Philadelphia -7. Doubt it. Definitely not Washington. I'm not going to give 6 with Washington against the Giants. I don't know. Maybe I'm trying too hard there. Not comfortable with Washington off of that one amazing, unforeseen year as, I mean, it's not that big a spread, but as like a safe bet as a favorite going into 2025. I'm not comfortable there. We'll see what happens with Terry McLaurin, but I'm not feeling that confident in Washington. And the Giants, the one thing people keep saying about, well, they keep saying a lot of things about the Giants, and many of them are mean. But one thing you do hear about them, it used to be that the Jets got this. I'm sure I said it a lot 2-3 years ago with the Jets. Oh, but there's a lot of talent. The Jets had the offensive and defensive rookies of the year on their roster, and they had Breece Hall, who might have won had he not gotten hurt, right? Was it Garrett Wilson and then Sauce Gardner? So the Jets got that compliment. The Giants get that compliment now, especially on defense. How, like when they came to play the Bills, Abdul Carter and 3 or 4 other guys, like the Giants have playmakers on defense, and maybe could be, the schedule is brutal, but otherwise maybe could be an interesting fantasy defense pick. I mean, probably not being picked hardly ever. And the schedule is part of that. You don't want to, in my opinion, a lot of people do it this way. With defenses, you want to, maybe pick a different one each week. Streaming, they call it. And so you're not really thinking so much about the whole season. You're looking at week 1. Arizona is a team that gets drafted in fantasy for defense because they play the Saints in week 1. We had that one, 6-42. So 24-18 implied total for their opponent. You might like Arizona as a fantasy option. So anyway, the Giants have that. I wonder if offensively with Malik Neighbors, running game is the running game. Is Wilson competent enough? Is there enough left where he can keep them in games and even beat people? And I don't know. Like, again, they have it really tough. Almost cruel because the Giants have been so bad. And now you've got, Dable and maybe Joe Shane are up against it this year. But, I mean, listen to this. At Washington, at Dallas, Kansas City, Chargers, Saints. Okay, there's a game where they might be favored. Eagles at Denver. Eagles again. San Francisco, who I think probably will be good. Bounce back year. Super easy schedule. Cake schedule. At the Bears. Green Bay. At Detroit. I mean, this is 12 games in, and the Giants have one game where they look like even or better than their opponent. You could say the Bears, I guess, but I wouldn't. You've got at New England after that, Washington again, Minnesota, at Vegas, and then Dallas. I mean, that is a brutal schedule for a team that's been so bad. Where's my last place schedule benefit? The Giants are wondering. So, Survivor, I'll get to an answer. I'm trying to make it on the fly here. Don't feel like I want to go Philadelphia. Definitely want to avoid Washington. Cincinnati at Cleveland, maybe. Arizona at New Orleans, maybe. And then the 5th one was Tennessee, Denver. Those all make a lot more sense to me. The Bengals, everybody kind of knows about how they've had slow starts. And I feel like that's probably baked into that spread. So maybe the Bengals, and then also the Cardinals, who are the Cardinals to give 6 on the road in week 1, but a glaring siren about how bad the market thinks the Saints will be. This is Mike Schopp. I'll be right back. Thanks for listening to WGR. Thanks again to Zach, Derek, Brayton for holding it down the first hour today. I was recovering from some dental work. I had a crown put in today, and my mouth was numb there for a few hours. But once I got rolling in here at 4 o'clock, felt better. The numbness went away. I celebrated to myself, all right, we're through it. But then the next phase started to come on a little while after that, which is that it's like really sore. So the numbness is good, because once that goes away, it's pretty sore right now. But the doctor told me, it's like, you don't want to know this, but they weren't able to finish the job today, so I've got a temporary one for like 3 weeks, going on a trip tomorrow, couldn't just sort of not do anything. So I have a temporary one. She said there'll be like some glue. There'll be little tiny specks of glue that will come off that you'll notice. Don't you love hearing this? You're just getting home for dinner, and I'm explaining this. But that has happened. At one point, I sort of touched it without even thinking about it, and a little slice of the, very thin slice of the tooth glue came off. So that was exciting. Will there be a sportsmanship point of emphasis this weekend in the preseason? Wouldn't you think so? I mean, I haven't really noticed anything like this yet. Seemingly over the top, unsportsmanlike conduct calls. Who's not excited for that this year? Sportsmanship makes a return. Having been gone for so many years, sportsmanship makes a return to the NFL this year. They're saying that this will be an area to watch this year. So you can't stand over somebody for too long. You can't do any sort of knife gesture or anything like that. And that's good, right? Because we don't want our kids to be subjected to those kinds of things. But maybe the preseason, if anybody takes it seriously enough on the field, I mean, these guys are playing for jobs. This weekend at least gives you that. If you are a fan that enjoys that aspect of things, like it's been a long time since I've spent a lot of time sort of trying to predict the bottom end of the Bills roster, especially like outside of work. In my youth, when I was super, just everything about them mattered to me, I would do that. Watch the preseason, watch the Detroit game at the end of the preseason to see who the third string outside linebackers would end up being, or whatever it was. So you can get into that here, assuming none of the starters play or almost none. I have wanted to get more out of wide receiver in terms of analysis, what's predictive, than I've been able to discern here these few weeks. And, some of that is that Allen isn't playing. So unless you're at practice, and what's that even worth sometimes, there's no real sign. You can see who's not on the field. We've had Elijah Moore on the field with the backups, so that might not be great for him. You had Samuel miss for an injury, so you can't even really know on that one. Maybe he plays on Saturday night. He's somebody as a veteran. Maybe they're hoping to trade him. We've had that conversation a little bit, whether he's a cut candidate. There were a couple of wide receiver trades in the league last night. And I don't know if Samuel wasn't as interesting to the Saints as Devon Vele. It's not like he would be that much older. Or the Niners, who are just down everybody at that position. They traded for Sky Moore last night from Kansas City. Sky Moore had a moment in a Super Bowl when they beat Philadelphia a few years ago. Same with Kadarius Toney. But really, I believe a second-round pick, kind of an exciting prospect from the MAC, Sky Moore. Remember comparisons to Antonio Brown? Because he was from the MAC, right? And here comes the next Antonio Brown. Probably didn't hear that exactly. But his career has not panned out. Maybe in San Francisco he'll find God, We'll take – Sky is his name. We will take a break here. My conversation with John Ledard, longtime draft analyst, and lately more centered on the Bucs with Saturday night's game in mind. Spent some time on the Bills' next opponent. With John, that'll be right after the update here on WGR.
The Buffalo Bills wrapped up training camp practices today.